Hi everyone, this is the tutorial for the second workshop, and in this workshop we will cover how to create a spreadsheet in Excel based on the data set you came up with in the previous workshop, and how to create a bar chart and a pie chart. So let's go back, let's recap really quick. So this is kind of where we ended our last workshop, with this table that contains the following information. It has one column listing 20 different participants. In the example that I used, it was parents who were asked about feeding habits for their babies. And then you have columns for each survey question. In my case, survey questions where do you put your baby to sleep with milk? Do you have your baby finish the milk every time? Do you comfort your baby with milk? And do you watch TV while feeding? And then you were also asked to create possible response options that you think would have been asked in order to find out whatever the study shows and whatever the article cites. And those response options, you plug them in, and randomly you make this up, right? So it's all mock data, because we don't really know what the study was, we just have the information from the newspaper article. Okay, so the next step is you go into Excel and you open Excel. I have prepared a spreadsheet which you can also find in your in the workshop folder if you want to use it to be reminded what things should look like. And you open Excel, and what you do next is you will assign a column for each question and one column for the participants, just as you did by hand in the previous workshop. And then what you will do next, you should type in the different columns and then the different participants. I will show you a little trick. Let me just go out here. So in the cell here, I just wrote in participants. The next cell, it says sleeping with milk. You can make your cells larger by just dragging that line to the right, so you can actually read what's in there. And then you write in here, parent 1, you can write in the cell, you can write up here. So if you see, I can write up here and it shows in the cell. So the next thing you can, to avoid having to write parent 2, parent 3, parent 4, parent 5, and so on, you go into the right corner and you see how that little cross here shows, and then you left click and you drag the cells until it says parent 20, and you let go of the mouse, and the cells will fill out automatically. That's one of the nice things about Excel. Okay, so you do this, and then the next step is you put in the answer of your mock data set. So here, just to remind yourself, I had the question, when feeding your baby, how often do you do any of the following? Putting your baby to sleep with a bottle of milk. Do you do that always? Do you do that often, occasionally, rarely, or never? So these response options now have to go into the data sheet so that it looks something like this. So you should do that. That's going to take some time. Again, it should be totally randomly, and at some point your spreadsheet should look like this. Don't forget to transfer the numbers that you assign to each option as well. So once you've done this, next thing you do is you make sure that the table you created in step 8 and the last step of our previous workshop looks just like the table you created in Excel now. Just look at both of them, make sure they look the same. So the next step is you need to decide now which visual representation is appropriate for each column of data, right? I have 4 survey questions, question 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have to decide, is that qualitative or quantitative data? And we can also take a look at a textbook. I believe it's page 320 that talks about the differences between qualitative and quantitative data. So qualitative data is if the response option, if I ask you, do you put your baby to sleep with milk? If your response is an actual response, that you use words for, yeah, you see always, never, sometimes, I don't know. That's qualitative data. Other examples for qualitative data is when I ask you, what's your gender, right? You say, well, I'm female, I'm male. What race do you identify with? I'm white, I'm black, I'm Hispanic, right? All those different answers that you can give. If it's an actual answer, it's qualitative. If your answer to a question is a number, then it's usually quantitative data. For instance, if I ask you, how old are you? And I say 28. If I ask you, what's your yearly income? And you say $150,000. If I ask you, what year were you born? Right, 1978. So all those things are numbers, right? The answer is a number already, and it's usually a number that is implicitly on a continuum, right? So when I ask you, how old are you? Whatever you say, let's say you say I'm 22, this answer comes out of a past, right, from being theoretically 1 year old to 102 years old, right? With 1 year in between, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 102, and you pick the 22. So that would be quantitative data. So now, if you have any columns that respond in a numerical way, age, income usually, then just write down all that's quantitative, and if the response options are actual words, if you've written down words, then it's qualitative, so just make a mark. So now, okay, let's say you have qualitative data. So now, the next step you want to ask yourself is, do you want to display relative frequencies or just frequencies? We talk about what the difference is in a second. For relative frequencies, you usually use a pie chart, so you display the percentages for each response option, right, that add to 100 to the total to pi, right? And if you want to display just the numbers, how often has somebody said that they put their baby always to sleep with milk, then you want to display just frequencies, and you would usually create a bar chart. I will show you how that looks like, what that looks like in a second. Now, if you have quantitative data, the next question you want to ask yourself is, do you want to represent a change over time? So do you want to look at rates of education over time, for instance, right? How many high school graduates have we had that time, or college graduates, let's say. If you want to do that, yes, you would create a time series diagram. I cannot doubt that that's the case in what you're doing, but if there's time involved and a change in time, then you want to go for a time series diagram. Or if that's not the case and you just want to display age, for instance, you would create a line chart or a histogram. Okay, so take your time, look at that flowchart. Also go to a textbook and take a look at, I think it's page 320 and 321. And the next thing is creating a bar chart. So you can do this by hand to just get a sense of it. Before you do it, you would have to create a frequency table. Again, yeah, take a look at page 321 of your textbook on how to do this. I'm going into Excel to show you what a frequency table looks like. So what you do is you, in the first cell of your first column, you write the name of your column, right? Is it gender? Is it what question does it respond to? So you will remember when you have several frequency tables. In the next column on top you write frequency, and then you write relative frequency, and you can write cumulative frequency. I'm not going to do this now because it's not as important actually. And in the first column then you write the different response option, right? The response options in my example were always, often, occasionally, rarely, never. Okay, so once you've done this, the next step is filling in the frequencies. The first frequency here is something you will have to do by hand. I already did it, luckily. What the frequencies do is they tell you how many people have said always, how many people have said often, how many people have said occasionally, how many people have said rarely, and how many people have said never. That's what it does. So in my case, 8 people have said always, 4 people have said often, 1 person has said occasionally, 3 people have said rarely, 4 people have said never, responding to the question, do you put your baby to sleep with milk? Let's go back to the data spreadsheet. So always took place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Here we are 8. Often took place 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So it's 4. Occasionally took place exactly 1 time. So it's 1. Rarely happened 1, 2, 3 times. So you put in a 3. And never happened 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So it gets a 4. The next thing you do is you compute those, add those things up, because you want to make sure that you didn't make a mistake. Excel uses formulas, and it's good to know those formulas just because once you know them, it makes your life easier. The formula to sum things up, and I'm going to make this so the formula to sum things is as an equal sign. I'm doing it again. An equal sign, SUM capitalized, parentheses. And then I want to sum this cell through this cell here. This cell, for those who play chess, they will be familiar with this, is called B2. It's column B, row 2. So I'm writing B2. And then I want Excel to add B2 through B6. So I write a little column, 2 dots, through B6, and I close my parentheses, I hit enter, and Excel adds up those numbers for me. It's 20, I had 20 participants, right? So I got the response of each participant. I didn't miss anyone, and I didn't count anyone twice. If you have, let's say I would have 19, it would have meant I would have missed 1 response, right? Counting 1 response. If I had 21, it would have meant I counted a response twice. So you want to make sure that your total number corresponds to the actual number of your total number of your participants.